them killing children, innocent people, because they want to change a world. Your journalist who were just on James, no, he's wrong. Sorry, bye.
Okay, thank you, Kate. And the final one from Nick, and then we'll get the reaction from Claire and Andy to all of this. Nick has been in touch. This is what he has to say.
Good morning, Peter. It's Nick Moore from Loughborough. Season's greetings to both you and Ralph. Ralph makes a wonderful point, and he speaks in a way that most people would like to speak but feel they can't. I would go further, and I would ban all migration into this country from any Islamic country, and any Muslims that come over on the boats would get sent straight back. I would ban all legal immigration from Islam at this current time. Thank you, Peter. Great show. You've kept me sane all year. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, Nick. Merry Christmas to you. That's Nick, Kate and Karen there with their variety of views there. Let's get a quick reaction. Then I want to talk about the waspy women. A quick reaction from Andy and Claire. Andy.
I think Nick's suggestion there is completely wrong. I think that would be a blunt instrument to say we can't bring anyone from any Islamic country into the country. How would you define an Islamic country? Would it be a country in which the majority of people were practicing Muslims or identified as Muslims? And actually, again, in this case, if, as we expect, this attacker was living in Germany for 18 years, fully integrated in society, and apparently potentially anti-Islam, what then?
Claire?
I think we definitely need to have a discussion around immigration and who is allowed to come into the country under what robust set of rules and regulations that will conform to make a decision on that. But I think we are living in great present danger of an uprising of Islam and its fundamentalists, and I think we have to have an honest and open discussion about that, because being willy-nilly, being lefty-wokey about it isn't helping.
And it isn't working.
And it's not working.
Okay, just a couple of minutes left, and I want to definitely get your thoughts on waspy women. This was a big discussion this week about women who said they were denied their pensions. Andy, what do you think?
John, let's be honest. We can change about something completely irrelevant. That's what I'm saying. This campaign is one of the most legitimate campaigns politics for some time. Just go around and say, well, we didn't like that, or we weren't listening, we didn't tell on the TV for 20 years, we didn't look in our post for 20 years, a decision was made in 1995, we didn't like it. These things continue.
Although if they have since then, there were women who were 57 and you were told you think they were retiring at 65, well actually they were retiring at 67.
Sorry, too bad. No, it's politics.
I've never heard it, and I'm happy to.
Wow, okay. Strong views from Claire there.
I think my better one was off air.
Right, thank you. I think it probably was. Yes, we couldn't broadcast that. We've had Claire
See you
on.
next Tuesday.
So I'll have that from Claire because she's...
See that.
Okay, we've had Claire Muldoon because she speaks sense, and we've had Andy on because...
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
He's attempting to smile now. He's going to slap me during the news. Listen, thank you both very, very much indeed. We'll talk to Philip Kissley in just a second about these issues in regard to Germany, in regard to Starmer as well, and the gagging in regard to the people who have been responsible and involved in the Sarah Sharif case as well. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Well, a very good morning. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell here between now and 12:30. We're reflecting on the horrific actions of a terrorist in Germany. The number of people killed at the Magdeburg Christmas market has risen to 4, according to German media. We think that Olaf Scholz, who is the Chancellor of Germany, is going to speak shortly at a press conference. If it's in German, there's really no point in us bringing it to you, but if he speaks in English, for at least part of it, we'll bring you a bit of it, or perhaps even a clip of it. We're going to talk to Philip Kistley in a second. He's Senior Fellow of the New Culture Forum about that story, but also about Starmer saying that he has no regrets about the decisions he's made. What do you think? Should he have regrets? What should they be? Also, there's fury as a Sarah Sharif judge, this is the little girl, 15 different opportunities to save her were missed. The judge says the press can't be trusted to be fair. He has controversially blocked the identification of professionals who missed those chances. We'll ask Philip about that. We'll ask you as well. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at TalkTV or follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note. We had 3 of those on just a few minutes ago. Same number, 0344 499 1000, on which you can give me a ring, or you can also send me a WhatsApp text message. Lots to discuss between now and 12:30 here on Talk. Thank you to Simon in Aberdeen, who has texted me to say Keir Starmer's biggest regrets are, I think, having no moral compass and a total lack of empathy. I say this because he behaves like a programmed automaton with someone else's agenda, says Simon in Aberdeen. Talking about Peter Mandelson being the ambassador to the United States as well. John in Norwich says Peter Mandelson thinks he is UK ambassador to the US. Nigel Farage is the UK ambassador to the US. And Taff in Dover says, morning Peter, who will Mandelson be working for, the EU or the UK? And David's been in touch in regard to the officials, the people who were working and missed those opportunities in regard to Sarah Sharif, the little girl. He says, I wholeheartedly agree with your comments about the judge refusing to name anyone in social services who may have been negligent in their dealings with Sarah Sharif's parents. In not doing so, this just compounds the lack of trust the public have in the system. Have a great Christmas and a happy and healthy New Year. David, thank you for your comments, and it's very similar comments to you as well. Merry Christmas. We also say Merry Christmas and hello on a dark day for Germany to Philip Kistley. He's Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. There's a number of issues, Philip, I want to get your wisdom on. I love having you on this programme. First of all, perhaps you can give us your reaction to what has happened in Germany and the fact that there is a very confusing and confused picture of the alleged perpetrator coming out.
Yeah, well, first of all, hello, Peter. It's great to talk to you again.
Thank you.
I'm like everybody else. I'm coming to terms with this, and I'm feeling a mixture of rage and despair, and I think rage is winning the day for me at the moment, mainly because I want it to. I think it's important that we're very angry about these atrocities. This is a war on the West. It's a war on Christendom. It's a war on us. It's a war on our children, and we are stuck in what I call an atrocity cycle. And this cycle is just going to spin faster and faster and faster. Yes, this is in Germany, but it could well be in Britain. We have our share of them. It's an attack on the West, as I say. One of the problems we've got is that we are not really acknowledging that Islamism, extreme Islamism, is waging a war on us. And we are not engaging in that war. We are stepping away from it. We're refusing to engage. We deal with confuse and diffuse, controlled spontaneity, a refusal to apportion blame. Now, a society that refuses to apportion blame when a particular radical group of people are butchering its children like meat at an abattoir is a society that is going insane. It's a society that's at the end of days. So we really need to think about who we are, what we are, and how we react to the most sickening violence within our borders. And this is about thinking about 2 things, Peter, really. One, I think as your previous guests have said, it's obviously about radical Islam and where where Islam sits in our society. But two, it's also about mass immigration. And we have to think about this person who allegedly came to Germany in 2006 from Saudi Arabia. Why did he get into Germany? Why did he come to Europe? Who's responsible for opening the doors?
And I think there are a lot of questions as well, Philip, in regard to how he portrayed himself, what he said he was versus what he was. And I don't think we can take at face value, nor should we, because if anybody engages critical thinking as you, Philip, how he portrayed himself versus what his actual thoughts, motivations, considerations and actions actually were. Because Saudi Arabia wanted him back, they alleged all sorts of very tricky things and very difficult and very serious charges against him. He said essentially that he was helping people flee a regime. We just don't know, and okay, it's less than 24 hours, and the picture that we're building of this suspect is a confused one.
Yeah, I mean, it's confused, it's confusing, it will get worse. But there's an element of gaslighting going on here, I think. There's this sense of, oh, well, we don't know. We kind of do know something. We know that...
But what do we know, Philip, from what you've read and considered about it? What do you think we can say definitively about this suspect?
Yeah, we know that an immigrant from Saudi Arabia who came to Europe has mutilated and attacked and murdered a load of people in a Christian Christmas market. Those are the facts, okay? Those are the facts. Mm-hmm. And we'll probably be more deaths and all the rest of it, but those are the facts. So we can extrapolate from there, and we can think about the context, the conditions in which this has happened, and we can think about recent history, and we can think about other atrocities, and we can think about the narratives and disinformation around other atrocities like like Southport, for example, and think about where we get there. So we can't make any kind of hard and fast decisions at the moment. But we do have to be sensible about this, and we do have to think about the person who perpetrated this.
Yes. Yes, and those questions will be there and will remain. I see the Mayor of Magdeburg, the City Mayor Simone Boris, has announced a memorial service will be held at 7 o'clock tonight, German time, at 6 o'clock UK time. He says, I'm shocked, deeply affected, and my heart goes out to the victims and their families. She said, sorry, it's a woman, of course. She thanked the emergency services and everyone who offered help after the terrible attack. I could never have imagined that Magdeburg would be affected by such an act. But, I mean, the fact is, Philip, that we could imagine that this would happen, because it could happen anywhere, and we have seen those Christmas market attacks before. We have seen them happen in Germany before, and there are many people worried that this kind of thing could happen in the United Kingdom as well.
Now, if you go to any Christmas market in the UK, I'm thinking about Manchester in particular, you will see police armed to the teeth walking around these markets, but also concrete bollards surrounding them, you know, terrorist-proof concrete bollards surrounding wooden toys and Christmas trees and fake snow, and a general celebration, a lovely, cute celebration of Christmas and our culture. That juxtaposition is just frightening, and we really need to address it.
Yes. How do we address it? What do we actually do, Philip? How do we get through this, and how do we stop this happening and this sort of thing happening?
I think, first of all, we have to acknowledge that we have a problem. There is a ideology within our borders, and I'm talking about the whole of Europe here, that wants to destroy us. And I'm not just talking about this particular instance. I'm talking about all of the atrocities. I'm talking about the number of Islamists on the MI5 terror watch list, for example. I'm talking about the hate marches. I'm talking about anti-Semitism. I'm talking about all of that stuff. We have a society that has become a sectarian society, and I think this is the same across Europe. We need to address that sectarianism, and we need to be able to put our country and our culture first. So if people want to live here, they have to engage, appreciate and respect who we are. and they have to take that on board to a certain level as well. It's all very simple stuff. My father came to Britain in 1959. I'm from immigrant stock, but he didn't want to impose himself on society. He didn't want to bring his own religion, his own ideology. He just wanted to marry an English woman, have children, start a business and assimilate. And I think that whole model should be something that we're thinking of. But the main thing is to stop mass immigration, because we just can't we can't keep up with it.
Well, thank you. Just to say that on the screen at the moment, you can see that Rainer Hasselhoff, who is the state minister in the area that this happened, is speaking at the moment. The interior minister, essentially the home secretary of Germany, Nancy Faeser, is due to speak soon. We'll perhaps hear from Olaf Scholz as well. If they're speaking in English, if Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, speaks in English, we'll take a little bit of that with you. But I just want to continue talking to Philip, especially as we've received a message from Benny in Belfast, who says Germany, Britain and France have suffered horrendous terrorist attacks by radical extremist Muslims. Other European countries are experiencing almost no Islamist terror attacks or threats at all. Countries like Poland and Hungary, where there are very few Muslim immigrants. Those countries are also the safest places for Jews to live and visit in Europe. I mean, Philip, Benny in Belfast is absolutely correct.
Yes, and I mean, this is what I've been saying for a long time, and my father was Hungarian. So I'm very familiar with Hungary. I'm very familiar with the culture there, and I've been engaged professionally with Hungarian culture as well. We are dealing with the fallout, as I say, of mass immigration. We keep coming back to the same thing, but we're also dealing with a sense of self-loathing. We're dealing with a sense of cultural guilt. We are constantly negating ourselves as a society and as a culture. We constantly champion everybody else, and we tend to hate ourselves, and we need to stop doing that because it's self-harm.
Let me ask you about another societal issue. I think this is fundamental to a society: free speech, freedom of expression. And we're in a situation with another story which I'm really angry about this morning. This is the judge in the Sharif case saying the press can't be trusted. To be fair, he has controversially blocked the identification of the professionals. They missed 15 opportunities to save this little girl, Sarah Sharif, and now a High Court judge says he has imposed an anonymity order to prevent, as he puts it, a virtual lynch mob, because he did not believe the media could be trusted to report matters in a fair, accurate and responsible way. That, to me, shouldn't be his decision to make. Philip, what do you think?
It's not his decision to make. It really isn't. It's outrageous that he's saying that. I mean, he's treating the general public like idiots. He's infantilizing us, and he's treating the press with contempt. We have a right to know what's going on. If you think about the unrest earlier in the year, when we'll talk about Keir Starmer in a moment, because people were concerned, they weren't listened to, they weren't given correct information, so they took to the streets, because the disinformation around Southampton and Southport,
yeah,
and the lack of information and the downright censorship absolutely drives people wild. Now, we need to know about this, because if people at the sharp end are not picking up on obvious, terrible abuse, then we need to know who they are. But also, if they are picking up on obvious and terrible abuse and they're reporting it further up the line, we need to know about that too, because then we can think about these systemic errors and this systemic prejudice. We can't do any of that. But the worst thing about this is this judge is just so completely out of touch. Okay, you can put it. It's almost like putting a Dino.
It's real.
I'm not joking. On the mainstream
Diversity
media,
barriers.
isn't it?
These? Well, they're to stop terrorist attacks. It's real. I'm not joking. They're diversity barriers. This will go straight back up now, and these are to stop cars coming through and mowing everyone down. Okay. And we have these in every town centre. You know, our Christmas markets now are literally just entire things like this, fortified to get anywhere near the Christmas market, because they expect cars to come flying into them. So, as I said, the more Islam, the less freedom.
Okay. So, are you?
And very straightforwardly, and then people can use their critical thinking and make their minds up as a result. What will happen now, as you correctly say, Philip, is that the names will get out in ways that are not straightforward. There is no control over it. There is no legality in some of it as well. And this will absolutely fuel all sorts of conspiracy theories in a very straightforward case of neglect, of the fact that those people, I mean, there shouldn't be a discussion about whether they should consider their positions. They should all be resigning anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this is about wrestling to control the narrative, isn't it? And we're talking about Germany, we talked about South Pole. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
We will give you some stuff, and we'll trickle it out.
We'll give you what we think you can handle, and that's so unbelievably patronising.
What we think you should know, because this is our narrative and we want to control it. And anything else is conspiracy, it's hatred, it's Islamophobic, all the rest of it. That really isn't the case. People want to know what's happening, and they don't want to be fed like porridge a controlled narrative.
Thank you very much indeed, Philip. Always fascinating to speak to you. Philip Kistley there, Senior Fellow of the New Culture Forum, on this specific issue in regard to identification of people who perhaps didn't do their job. Dorothy in East Kilbride has been in touch and says, "Good morning, Peter. I'm in complete agreement with your stance regarding the judge's decision." Claire Muldoon says we should trust the system. For the public to trust the system, it must be open and honest. They should be named. Perhaps if people in their position know they will be held to account, they would do their job, for goodness sake. Thank you very much to Leslie as well, who says we need to know those in Sarah's case, not to riot, but to see them held to account for letting the little poor girl down. What absolute rubbish this is. And we'll talk about this more after the break. We'll take your calls and messages, 0344 499 1000. Just one more before the break. From Mary in County Down, who says there is no easy way to turn the tide of terror and fear on the streets of the UK and Germany, but if we don't turn it, our societies are in grave danger. Change has happened so rapidly that governments and institutions are blindsided, yet they created this mess. Your thoughts on that too? Let me know what they are. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Well, Olaf Scholz, who is the Chancellor of Germany, he's been speaking in the last few minutes about this horrendous attack. We know that the death toll is now 5, and Scholz says what an awful crime this is. He's spoken of the brutality of the killing and horrendousness in regard to the injuring of so many people. It's a terribly tragic incident. He says he's going to respond with the full strength of the law. We will see what he has said. He spoke in German, so we didn't bring it to you live, but we'll get a translation of at least some of what he says and bring it to you in the next hour or so. Saxony-Anhalt State Premier Rainer Hasselhoff says the number of people killed at the Magdeburg Christmas market attack is confirmed now. That has risen to 5, more than 200 people injured, and seriously injured, well, that's 41 people, and we know that there's going to be a memorial service held at 7 o'clock German time, that's 6 o'clock UK time. We'll keep you right up to date and all of that. Lots of people getting in touch as well. Jay in Epping says, if it's true that the Saudis wanted this alleged perpetrator back, they knew he was a risk. Human rights and weak government are to blame again. Jane says, we need to be honest about why we need armed police at Christmas markets. Leslie says, why do we allow Sharia law in the UK? We have a law of the land, and that's the only law, end of. Stop the pandering with the excuse of cohesion and diversity. Alison says the police officer that shot the man in London has had his identity put in the public domain, so the same should happen to the people who didn't do their job to protect Sarah Sharif. I think that's a very good point, and it's something that I know that Mike in Surrey has given us a ring to talk about. Mike, you're very welcome to the programme. He's given us a ring on 0344 499 1000. Do you think these officials should be named or not, Mike? What do you think?
No, I don't think they should be named. I don't think the police officer should have been named. But no, I don't think these people should be named. I don't see the benefit of it particularly.
Doesn't it help them become accountable? Doesn't it let us, the public, know who missed those opportunities?
Then having their being sacked makes them accountable. How their names
will they be sacked though? And I mean, my view is that the more information you have in the public domain, the more people can make up their minds about this, and also there may be public pressure for those people to resign. They may just say, well, if my name's not going to be in the public domain, if nobody knows who it is, I'm just going to stay in my job.
It's not about their jobs, is it?
Well, it is to me. I think they should resign. If they've missed an opportunity, if they're given information that could have saved Sarah Sharif, it's really straightforward to me that they should not be in any job where their job is to protect children.
So in your opinion, that you feel that the public opinion should be able to determine whether they keep their job or not?
No, it's not about public opinion, but I know that people can put pressure on them if they have information. I also believe in a free press, and I believe in freedom of speech, and I think that if you're hiding behind all of these anonymity orders, the judge is saying that we're not mature. He's basically saying you and I, Mike, are not mature enough to make our own decision on this. That's what he's saying.
But then also the public, once their names are out in public, do you not feel that these people have got children? Some of these people have got children.
Of course, and listen, I'm not saying for a second that we should be doing anything illegal. I'm not saying that we should be making their lives hell. What I'm saying is that people can use their critical faculties, they can write to their MP, they can look into this, we can talk about it on stations like this.
People don't do that, though, do they?
Well, most people do.
Write to their MP, people get on Twitter, and then their children, and then their families will be trolled. I'm not one of these do-good left people. I'm not. Believe me, I'm not.
Yeah, sure. I'm not accusing you of that, Mike. Absolutely, yeah.
But people are just nasty, spiteful.
Some people are.
Just people are nasty and spiteful.
Not everybody,
and
Mike.
I just can't see the benefit of me sitting in Surrey, knowing, because these people are in Surrey. Okay, me sitting in one part of Surrey, knowing the person's name in another part of Surrey didn't do their job, is no benefit to me. Them losing their job, losing their salary.
As a citizen, I'd prefer to be informed, Mike. But listen, I'm very happy to respectfully disagree with you. And Mike, thanks for your call and a Merry Christmas to you. Jackie is in Manchester. Jackie, what do you think about this?
I think it's absolutely outrageous. I think on various points. I think the judge's comments is an attack on the press, on freedom of speech. I think that the failure within the public sector has to be addressed, because lessons learned just won't wash it anymore. And I speak as somebody who worked in the public sector for 23 years, but unfortunately, we do not have accountability. We do not have transparency. And when children are tortured and murdered, what sort of society are we?
And I just worry, first of all, Jackie, I agree with every single word you've just said. And secondly, in regard to that accountability and transparency, there just seems to be no accountability. What happened in the Baby P case when Sharon Shoesmith was sacked by Ed Balls, which was absolutely the right thing that he did when he was Education Secretary and Head of Children's Services in this country. She then got whacking great compensation and moaned about press intrusion into her life. Said, oh, the press were outside my house. Well, if you're Head of Children's Services and Baby P happened, I'm not talking about innocent people here. I'm not talking about people who don't have questions to answer in this. I'm talking about people who were specifically responsible and missed opportunities to save the life of a little girl who was brutally beaten and killed by these absolute scumbags masquerading as her father and stepmother.
Absolutely, and we should do everything that it takes, because if we can't protect our children, what have we become? And I'm sorry, but the fact is that if you are in a position of authority, you take the responsibility with it. And, you know, we cannot have a situation. We've had cover-up after cover-up, no transparency, and people are getting sick and tired because there's this narrative that tells us, well, you can't say this, you can't say that, you can't do this.
And you can't hold people accountable. You can't say that. I mean, it's like the judge doesn't trust us as members of the public. And the fact is that, yes, there will be some people who will write horrible things online. There will be some people who may act irresponsibly. But I would rather have the information in the public domain. And also, if the police are doing their job, well, then they should protect these people anyway. The fact is that, as you correctly say, Jackie, if you take one of these roles, such as Head of Children's Services or whatever, you've got to take the responsibility for what happens, because there was no warning. This is not, there were loads of warning and the warnings were heeded. I'm not talking about people who raised the flag and did exactly what they were supposed to do and said, look, I think there's a major issue with this young girl, we need to sort this out. I'm talking about people who were negligent in their jobs, people who said that nothing needed to be done because everything was fine. There was one boss, we actually do know his name, who said that Ofsted, the inspectorate, was too much in people's lives and needed to be ignored.
I mean, it just leaves me speechless. I mean, the thing is that we, in a lot of instances, we hold the public sector up to... There's more leniency with the public sector than there is in the private sector. And we need the same accountability, we need the same consequences, because the public servants at the end of the day. And if failure is occurring, we need to know who these people are. Do they need further training? Do they need to be in that job? Yeah. Do we need to understand the process? And if you don't name people, you never solve the problem, like the grooming gangs.
And you're absolutely right, Jackie.
Accountable.
You're absolutely right, Jackie. And they're essentially saying, I am qualified to do this job, I am in this job, I'm taking the money for it. But if there's a lack of accountability, and as Penny in Essex says, good morning, Peter. Lessons are never learned and never will be. There will be another child at the moment going through this abuse, and where was her natural mother also accused of abuse, which is why she was taken away from her. Poor little soul never had a chance. Having worked in the prison service as I did, they will have a dreadful time. Good, says Penny in Essex. I mean, I think Penny makes some very, very good points there in terms of saying that, you know, if the system worked, and this is the point as well, Jackie, isn't it? If the system worked, if we had confidence in the system to say, right, okay, do you know what? You don't need to know those people's names, don't need to know who they are, but you can trust us because we're going to deal with them. We're going to sack them, or we're going to give them further training, or we're going to move them somewhere where they're not directly responsible for these children. We're going to make it right. If we had confidence in the system, this call would not be going out, would it, Jackie?
No. And this is the problem, because we seem to have this authoritarian thing that the public are treated with contempt, that we don't need to know what is going on in our own country and about services that we're paying for and about our most vulnerable in society. And I am getting sick and tired of being patronised and drip-fed information which causes a vacuum, which then causes speculation, and people get upset, and it's got to stop. We are equal.
Another one, Jackie, from Graham and Bushy, I'm going to read out to you. It was a judge that decided to name the police officer in the Chris Cabba case. Why can't the same be done for the judge and others involved in the Sarah Sharif case? I think that's...
Drove into crowds at a German Christmas market. And it's that 2 people we now know have been killed. Almost 70, though, are injured after a car drove into crowds at a German Christmas market last night.
That's right. The suspected attacker arrested at the scene is believed to be a 50-year-old doctor from Saudi Arabia.
Images and video circulating online, too awful, I'm afraid, too awful to show you on air, show a car being driven at really high speed right into the Christmas market, right through people. Yeah. And the vehicle appearing not to slow down. In fact, it looks so fast, you wonder how anyone nearby could have possibly survived.
Joining us now is GB News' Home and Security Editor, Mark White.
Hi there, Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning. The story has changed.
Very good morning to you. It was just after... Sorry.
Yeah, no, go on. I was going to say there was still a lot of speculation last night about who it was and what the possible motive could have been. What's the very latest? Because the story has rather changed, hasn't it?
Well, to an extent, yes. The individual who was arrested by police shortly after this attack took place in the Christmas market in the centre of Magdeburg is a 50-year-old man, originally from Saudi Arabia. He came to Germany, first of all, in 2006. And astonishingly, of course, he was also a doctor working in one of the area hospitals. Now, of course, attention, as it always does, turns to motivation. Was this a terrorist attack? Was it not a terrorist attack? What we can say, and it's very clear from the political leaders in Germany and around the world with the comments that they are saying, and from what we've witnessed ourselves, looking at that video that you quite rightly say, Anne, is too horrific actually to show on air. It's very obvious this was a deliberate ramming attack. Now, whatever the sick motivation that forced an individual to get behind the wheel of a car and to drive it at such high speed into this Christmas market and to continue at high speed for hundreds of metres along this Christmas market, scattering bodies as it went. We don't know at this stage, quite frankly. There are reports that this individual may actually have been anti-Islamist in his views. But as I say, whatever the twisted motivation and logic was behind this event, it's clear from everything we've been told that this was a deliberate attack targeting some of society's most vulnerable, young children, a young child confirmed among the dead, and of course many people, up to almost 70 it appears at this stage, that have been injured. And, you know, when the German authorities are back and functioning again in terms of their press operation today, I'm sure we'll get an update on those figures coming out. But truly awful event. You were saying before you came to me about this proud tradition, of course, that the Germans have about, you know, over Christmas markets. It really is. They are so incredibly proud and nostalgic about their Christmas markets and attend these events in very significant numbers. There were many hundreds of people at the Magdeburg Christmas market when this attack took place.
OK, Mark, we'll leave that there and join you a bit later on. We're now joined, I think, by journalist Rob Hyde from Germany. Hello there, Rob. We've been reading your article in this morning's Telegraph. You quote Bild, the German newspaper, as saying it was indeed a terrorist incident. Is that what the police are saying now?
It is what the authorities have said. It's also been the case that the mayor of Magdeburg had also referred to it as an attack, and then later on it was confirmed by police that it was a terror attack. There have been some questions regarding Bild, because Bild initially had reported that there were 11 people who had died, and then, as you've rightly said, the official deaths so far have been announced as being an adult and a young child. So there were some questions there, but yeah, it's an ongoing situation, and it's still kind of developing and breaking.
Yeah, Robin, and it is shocking. I'm looking at the political reaction here. Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, his thoughts are with the victims and families. And in Britain, of course, Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, saying his thoughts are with the victims' families and those affected. And we stand with the people of Germany. And, of course, it's particularly in Germany, we're looking into an election period, aren't we?
That's right. And it's a difficult one, because I think there was a knee-jerk reaction on social media to an extent of many people saying, "Oh, is this proof of a failed immigration system?" And Germany has certainly made an awful lot of mistakes in that area. However, I think this is quite complex, because the person, when he came in, he didn't actually have any known history of, for example, Islamic extremism and so forth. In fact, as was alluded to by the person who spoke before me, there were actually indications now that more and more research is coming out that he was actually a critic of Islam, and that actually through doing that was what had made him faced even death threats, because he actually renounced Islam. And this is what prompted him to seek asylum. So on one hand, you have that. However, as everyone is already talking about, of course, it's only in 2016 when we had the awful, horrific, murderous attack in Berlin at the Christmas market there, and there seem to have been similarities to that in terms of you had a vehicle. In this case, it was this black BMW, a rented BMW, which ploughed 400 meters into the crowd and also resulted in deaths. And if you then just move away from that and just focus even just this year, there have also been an awful lot of issues and incidents related to Christmas markets in Germany, which haven't really got that much attention in, for example, the foreign media. So, for example, down in Augsburg in December this month, there was a 37-year-old Iraqi national who was allegedly financing terrorism, and he was scouting around the Christmas market, taking photos. He was sharing Islamic State propaganda. Just the month before, in November, there was a 17-year-old German-Turkish national apprehended, and that was at the other end of the country in Elmshorn in Schleswig-Holstein in the north, and he was allegedly planning a truck attack inspired by the 2016 Berlin market tragedy. We've also had cases in November this year in Mannheim and Frankfurt where authorities uncovered a weapons cache, and they arrested 2 German Lebanese brothers also accused of plotting attacks on local Christmas markets. So quite rightly, everyone is now focused on this because it's horrific and horrendous. I'm here in Magdeburg myself, and I've been to the scene, and it really is awful. But I do also think there's been a pattern which hasn't really got the coverage it arguably deserves.
Yes, and that's scary in itself. We'll leave it there, Rob. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And as we say, the facts are sort of changing as we speak, that we're bringing you what is the very latest on that. And certainly there were a lot of weird rumours last night that have been proven not to be worth repeating now.
The social media speculation, the suspect held extreme anti-Islam views.
Yes.
And expressed fears about what he says, what he perceived apparently was the Islamisation of Germany, so completely counter to the previous attacks, which viewers might remember. It's particularly one in Berlin, of course, by IS back in 2016 that killed 13 people. So it's never straightforward, and we're not going to be quick to jump to conclusions here.
Absolutely, and I think since there has been this spate of them, and particularly they go for these Christmas markets, which are very much Christmassy family occasions. They're all about outdoor fun, really, aren't they? And you wonder why, in this case, why it should happen, because there doesn't appear to be an apparent motive, an obvious motive. And obviously we will be told more as and when the police discover it. We're joined right now by political commentator and, of course, the former mayor of Middlesbrough, Andy Preston. Andy, first of all, I know you'll want to give your initial comments on the terrible news overnight.
Morning, Anne. Morning, Chris. Hi. Yes, it's awful. I mean, it's clearly initially thoughts and prayers go for those who've lost loved ones. And I understand the death toll is maybe heading towards 15 over the course of the day. That's speculation. And I suppose that's a warning that there's so much speculation around at the moment, isn't there? The early signs are that this man has published material on X that is anti-Islamification. But I don't know when they were written, so we really need to wait and see. But my fear now is that this awful event will be seized on by some people to fuel a rise in tensions and fear and division. Now, the Christmas market event that's happened today, and as your previous guest was saying, there have been a number of incidents across Germany. I've been seeing for about 4 weeks now in the UK, comments of people who've attended markets about the extraordinary level of armed police and security there. And it would appear, based on what we now know is happening and has happened in Germany, that this is about a perceived threat, an understanding that there were real risks. And it's a warning that we mustn't be too laid back and always be vigilant. And thank goodness that our police and secret services appear to be on top of this, and there have been no major incidents so far.
But I know that I think in Berlin, the famous Christmas market there and others have put up security barriers that no vehicle could plunge into the crowd. And you wonder why that wasn't done here. As somebody who's been mayor of a very large area, have you had to think about such things?
Yeah, absolutely. And very often, actually, councils are very clever now, Anne. What will happen is in certain areas where there might be gatherings, where there are typically lots of people, you get street furniture put in. It can look like flower tubs and other things. And they are flower tubs, but what they're really there for is to stop vehicles gaining unauthorized access for malicious intent. So there are all kinds of clever barriers and safety measures that are put in place that the public don't realise. It's a very common thing. But of course, at the end of the day, Anne, if somebody wants to cause mayhem and endanger others, they will find a way to do it, one way or another, or one place or another. And I say again, I've been hearing for about 4 weeks about the intense security, the very visible armed security at British Christmas markets. So there's a real threat out there that the services know about, and we should all remain very vigilant.
OK, well, there's a lot of domestic politics around, which I know Chris is dying to ask you about.
Well, Andy, there's a lot happening, of course, in the UK. And today's a key day, isn't it, for people affected by the withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance. The deadline is today to apply for pension credit to qualify for winter fuel payment. And there's real concern here, isn't there, that it's complicated to apply, big forms for vulnerable people to fill in, and there may be tens of thousands of people who may be missing out if they don't apply by today.
Absolutely. It's extraordinarily complex. And of course, the very people that the winter fuel allowance was taken from are the people who are often, not always, but often the least able to navigate around these things on their own. I mean, I'm terrible with forms, and goodness knows how someone even older than me manages to do stuff sometimes. So well done to the Lib Dems, by the way. I've been very critical of the Lib Dems for not standing up to the government and challenging them, but they have done in this case, and I'm asking for that extension.
Yeah,
obviously, it's sorry.
Well, yeah, and that may be the case that's required. What I do find anecdotally is people don't want necessarily to give all their financial information away to the state. People don't want to tell everybody all the time. The form is quite complicated, and it's quite...
100%.
Why are they doing this when it was previously a benefit which everyone received? Some gave it back, some gave it to charities, some used it to keep warm their homes, but the extra intrusive nature of the inquiries is often off-putting for people.
Absolutely, Chris. So my mother gets scam calls. People call her and pretend to be the bank or Vodafone or whatever services she uses. And she's become quite good, actually, at spotting which ones are the scammers. And we've all spoken to my mother about not giving out personal info. But now, of course, they have to do the opposite. So we're saying don't give out any personal information in a form or on the phone. But, of course, when you get these government forms, you have to tell them everything about yourself. So it's very, very difficult. I think that there's a dimension to this that isn't just about the fuel payment and the application. It's about pensioners feeling overlooked, abused, and actually pessimistic about the future and their lot in the world. And I think that's a theme that runs through the government at the moment, is that the country feels pessimistic and feels that the dour, begrudging tone of Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves is what's pushed us into what's almost certainly looking like a recession. The Bank of England took the step and talked about stagnation. I personally think a recession is inevitable. I'm sorry to be two-party political, if that's how it comes across right now, but I really think this is part of a bigger government failing and a personal failing of Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, which is instilling a sense of pessimism and fear for the future.
It certainly doesn't feel like a terribly merry Christmas at the moment, does it? We're going to have to leave it there. It's really good to talk to you, though. Thank you very much indeed.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is...
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we had Small Business Saturday. Loads of small businesses, 23 of them wanted to be profiled. And we thought, actually, throughout December, do you know what? It's coming up to Christmas. A lot of people will want gift ideas, big spending, small amounts of money, large amounts of money. We've profiled loads of different businesses. We just do it quickly. We chat to them and get the information about what they are doing and what they think about what the government is doing as well. Vicky and Chris Sainer are our first business today. They have Bethnal and Beck Luxury Stays. And they met online, actually, in September 15, decided to bring their families together. They moved to the village of Cottard in Hertfordshire, and they've set up accommodation for anybody looking for a place to switch off, sleep, enjoy long walks, leisurely lunches, and fantastic, authentic local pubs, rest or binge watch Netflix on a 43-inch smart TV. Chris and Vicky, that sounds marvellous.
Good morning. Yes. Sorry, we were laughing at the 43-inch TV reference. Yes, we launched a campaign. Our Christmas campaign this year is gift memories, not things.
Okay, so what sort of memories would you have in your self-catering rural retreats? That is, I mean, that would be quite a big gift if you gave that to someone, but it's a slightly different type of retreat and a slightly different type of short break.
Yeah, so, well, we're adult only. That's a gift to start with.
Yes.
We can't bring children. We've got plenty of children of our own. But yeah, literally our places are for making memories. So you've got outdoor Japanese bars, you've got indoor cinema screens, you've got fires, you've got fire pits, you've got arcade machine, just for two people, just for a couple or solo stay. So they are literally the most dream place you can go to switch off and just enjoy for a few days.
How long do you... Sorry, go ahead, Vicky.
Well, I was just going to say, this year we won the Visit England award for East of England for Best Self-Catering, and then came third in the Nationals. So we put a lot of love and care into our 3 cabins. And you don't have to buy a full stay with us. You can buy a voucher of any value so that somebody could put that towards a stay with us.
How much is a stay with you? How much does it cost to stay, say, for a weekend or something like that?
A weekend stay starts from 550, and that's for basically the whole weekend. A lot of people just want to stay 2 nights, but we have our lazy Sunday policy where there is no checkout time on a Sunday, so you can stay as long as you want or even stay until Monday morning.
Sounds good to me. Tell me a little bit about, as a small business, as people who are entrepreneurs yourself, I mean, do you feel the government has your back?
%50 mortality. I really do think it's very likely that we will at some time, it's not a question of if, it's more of a question of when, we will have a bird flu pandemic. As you mentioned, unfortunately, bird flu has, when it does enter humans, has a significant mortality, probably somewhere between 25 and 50% mortality. So it's going to be quite complicated. We know exactly what has to happen for bird flu to be infectious for humans and go human to human. Scientists in 2012 actually did experiments in the lab using gain-of-function research, which I'm not in favor of, but the scientists did it, and they figured the 5 amino acids that have to change in a key receptor in order for bird flu to gain a propensity to bind to the human receptor and then be able to go human to human. Something that obviously happened with COVID, where COVID obviously learned how to use the ACE2 receptor in humans and then, of course, became a very infectious virus. Those 5 amino acids,
so
that's a huge...
So I was just wondering if it's going to go, if it does, hopefully it won't. If it goes human to human, though, is it like COVID where if you cough, someone else can get it? Is that how it spreads, or does it spread a different way?
No, it's likely to spread through aerosol and droplets is how it's going to eventually spread. And once the virus gains the ability to attach to the human receptor and then go human to human, that's when you're going to have the pandemic. I'm less concerned, though, that this will happen through spillover and evolution in animals. I'm much more concerned that this will happen in the laboratory through gain-of-function research.
Okay.
I can create this virus literally in weeks to months by using gain-of-function research. I know exactly what amino acids I have to change because in 2012, against my recommendation, the scientists that did these experiments actually published them. So the recipe for how to make bird flu highly infectious for humans is already out there. All you have to do is look it up.
That's creepy to think about.
Our producer Chris, who is waving his hands in the air with glee, and perhaps even Tech Up Dave as well, if he's a very good boy. Tell me a little bit. I mean, you employ 8 people. You've obviously a lot more involved as well. Do you think the government has your back? Do you think the government is supporting small business at the moment?
Absolutely not. So we went through, obviously, in the last 6 years, we went through Brexit. So we lost all our foreign sales. Then we went through the pandemic like everybody else did. But the worst thing for us, which might not have impacted so much on the business, small business, is the Ukraine war, because it really raised the prices of some ingredients.
Yes.
So, and considering we are doing some good and we are competing to the population health, and we are competing with the big guys here, which obviously don't do so much healthy food, we are actually helping the population to be healthy. So we could use some more help.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, listen.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I wish you well. Ella Ryan Presley's there, is the owner of FitBakes. We're profiling some of those small businesses that got in touch, the entrepreneurs, the backbone of the economy, and thank you to her for that. Lots of people getting in touch about the issue of Sarah Sharif and what happened, and the judge saying that he wants anonymity for the people who are in those children's services. Cultural sensitivities are being put before the safety of our children, says John and Sutton. The people in charge of child protection should be named and held accountable. That is John and Sutton who says that. And Elaine in Manchester has given me a ring about this as well. Elaine, very good to have you on the air. 0344 499 1000 is the number that Elaine gave me a ring on. What would you like to say about this, Elaine?
Oh, hi, yeah, good morning. I'm a foster carer for Manchester, and a lot of the blame doesn't go to the child protection services. We have had many cases where the children have been removed or there's been an issue and it's the judge that's overruled and sent these children back to the parents or found that they should stay with the parents. We had one incident where a young baby had been severely injured, but because there was no evidence of which parent had done it, the judge made the decision to send this child back.
That's horrendous and shouldn't have happened. Elaine, I just worry about this, and I worry about the fact that there is a lack of accountability here. And we had, John in Belfast, he was talking to us earlier, sent us a message saying, look, there are a lot of social workers under pressure. There are a load of social workers do a really, really good job. There are people who do take the responsibility and take their jobs incredibly seriously, but we also know, as you have just outlined there, Elaine, and we know in the Sarah Sharif case that there are people who report things that aren't acted upon, that don't do their job properly, that are people who will face no accountability because of what happened to Sarah Sharif as well. And I just feel very, very uneasy about any judge saying that we can't hold those people accountable because their names can't be in the public domain. Look, I don't want to witch hunt against people. I don't want anything illegal or anything bad, unpleasant to happen to those people. But if their names are in the public domain, there's some level of accountability there, Elaine.
Yeah. But it's always blamed on the teachers, the social workers, and people forget the ones that are higher up, the judges. It's their decision. At the end of the day, the judge has the final decision where these children go, whether they stay in care, they come into care. A social worker, a school can do all the work. I've known them to do months and months of reports, but the judge has still sent that child home, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse. There's always say there's not enough evidence.
I remember
something like this happens.
I know you're a foster carer, Elaine, and there are many foster carers that do absolutely brilliant work. There's some who don't, but I'm sure you're one who falls into the first category there. And I know some foster carers, have some friends who are foster carers, and it is a really, really tough life. It is a very important decision to make. I mean, have you ever had any worries about whether it was the right decision for you, Elaine?
About being a foster carer?
Yeah, given just all the bureaucracy and everything that you're seeing within the care system.
No, because without social workers, I wouldn't have been where I was today.
Okay, so you're a beneficiary yourself?
Well, my parents were both disabled, so obviously we had to have respite and things like that. So we was not in the system that we got taken away from our parents, but we were in the system where they supported to keep us together. And
you've decided to give back yourself now, Elaine?
Yeah.
That's amazing, Elaine. Honestly, you're a real hero. And you just saying that in a really matter-of-fact way, like it's the most normal thing in the world.
It is, just to give a child a chance and a future.
Elaine, you're a fantastic person. Thank you very, very much indeed for your call. Great thoughts there, and you're doing a good job and you're doing great things. So thank you for that. That was Elaine in Manchester there. Of foster carers who are in it for the right reasons, and there are very many of them are great people. They really are. I know some of them personally myself, and I know what they do and the sacrifices they make. We'll talk about America in a minute because the Republicans are under pressure in regard to the Senate and the government shutdown. We'll talk to Laurie Laird and Steve Gill. Will be with us in just a minute. Get your calls too. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Well, a very good afternoon. This is Talk. Thank you very much indeed for everyone who's been in touch already, excuse me, throughout the course of the programme. We're going to America in a second. We're going to talk to Laurie Laird and Steve Gill, two of my favourite American commentators, about what on earth is happening there and how close we are to changing things, the debt ceiling, the fact that the American government shutdown has been apparently narrowly avoided, but we'll see where we get to with that. We're also talking, a lot of people want to get in touch about the Sarah Sharif story as well, because there is a judge, we'll talk about this more tomorrow, there as well on my programme between 10 and 1, there is a judge who has said that those responsible should not be identified. What do you think of that, and who should be held accountable and how? 0344 499 1000. We'll talk as well about giving gifts at Christmas to teachers. There's some new research out about that, and we'll talk to one of my friends who's a teacher as well in a primary school, and what the, you know, if there are a few days left, maybe your kids aren't off school yet, although I know most of them are, what you should give your teacher. Just a nice little Christmas feature. Thanks everybody who's been in touch as well, including Sean in Gloucester. Says Peter, more often than not, the wrong people are being recruited, especially by our public sector. They're more interested in ticking boxes and meeting diversity targets than hiring the right people, regardless of skin colour, religion, gender or anything else. Hire the best person, full stop, and a lot of these problems will not happen. We're also talking about Christmas gifts, and Angie says I was given a wooden scrubbing brush by my late partner. Perhaps not the best gift. Give us your thoughts on all of this. 0344 499 1000. You can text me at 7222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at TalkTV or follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note as well, or a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring 0344 499 1000. Lots to talk about in the next 20 minutes or so here on Talk. Right then, what is happening in America at the moment? Because there is a lot happening in regard to Congress. A possible government shutdown has been narrowly avoided, it would appear. The debt ceiling is a big issue there, just as Donald Trump gets back into power in just less than a month's time. Also, Peter Mandelson, of course, is heading off to be the ambassador to for the United Kingdom in America. But the funding bill has cleared Congress, the US government being narrowly avoiding a crippling shutdown after politicians agreeing the last-minute spending deal, and that would have meant federal employees would have missed their pay ahead of the festive season. Elon Musk, of course, has been involved in a lot of all of this. Donald Trump putting his tuppenny worth in as well, 2 cents worth more accurately. Laurie Laird is a US political commentator and economist, and Steve Gill is a former advisor to the Clinton and Bush administrations. They both join us now. Steve, perhaps I'll start with you. What has actually just happened here?
Well, they dodged the opportunity for the government to get shut down. I say opportunity because it would have restrained some of the spending and some of the crazy stuff that the first bill that the Speaker and the Democrats had concocted, about 1,100 pages that Congress didn't even get to read before they were being demanded to vote on it. And some of the stuff that was tucked into that first version included a 40% pay raise for members of Congress, raising their pay from about $173,000 to $243,000, a 40% increase, while Social Security recipients are getting a 2.5% increase. That got knocked out in this version, but there was a lot of other crazy stuff that was included that didn't make it into this bill, but there's still a lot of bad stuff in it, and that's why a lot of the Republicans voted against it. The Democrats voted for it. In fact, the Democrats passed it with a Republican majority, tells you that this was still a bad bill.
Laurie, perhaps you could give us your perspective and talk a bit about the economics as well. The debt ceiling, I know, has been a big issue in all of this.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm jumping up and down about. I'm surprised that nobody else is. Donald Trump, one of the things that derailed the first iteration of the bill, and this is the bit that had that big pay rise for lawmakers, and amazing that they voted down a pay rise for themselves. The expediency of the Christmas holidays played into things here. But Donald Trump wanted a repeal of what's called the debt ceiling. And this is simply an arbitrary limit on how much the U.S. government can borrow. Congress sets it itself. Sorry, did it look like you wanted to say something there, Peter?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So this is completely arbitrary. It's not something that's contained in the Constitution. Started in 1917. Donald Trump wanted to get rid of this. I question some of his policies. This one, to me, is spot on. This did not get repealed or lifted. Now, this debt ceiling, which limits how much the government can borrow, this expires on the 2nd of January. So we may have averted a government shutdown, but we come back on the 2nd of January, and in theory, the U.S. is bumping up against this arbitrary limit on how much it can borrow. Now, the U.S., as Steve pointed out, spends a lot more than it brings in revenues. The rest of the spending comes from borrowing. At some point, the Treasury can do a number of, kind of accounting tricks to extend things so that we don't hit that ceiling on the 3rd of January. We don't know exactly the date that we will properly hit that ceiling. Best estimate at the moment is June, but we'll get some information from the Treasury in the days to come, we hope.
Yeah, Steve, I just
this is a big deal.
Yeah, of course. And Steve, the influence of Trump is being felt already. We know that he is building up his administration through the transition period. His fingerprints are all over this to some degree, but of course problems remain for when he actually becomes president again on the 20th of January.
Well, and Laurie's exactly right. The debt ceiling is a huge deal, and Trump wanted it, pushed back for 2 more years to give him the freedom to try and cut spending, to try and have the ability to not have to worry about the debt limit. The Democrats like the debt limit ceiling because it forces these, situations where the government will be shut down if we don't, let them spend money. And then they tuck all these Christmas tree ornaments into these bills at the last minute that are just because the fear of shutting down the government is a problem. And Donald Trump was wanting to avert this constant negotiation strategy that is forced upon us, and as Laurie says, without any real justification. I think the other thing that we're seeing is that Donald Trump, as you mentioned, is having huge impact even before he takes office, whether it's in world events. People are talking about coming to the table for peace talks. You've got the president of Mexico agreeing that, okay, we'll stop the flood of illegals coming across the U.S. border. You have the fact that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the ones that put in charge of cutting spending and better government oversight, their demands are what helped derail this bad budget deal. And Laurie's right. They wanted to get home for Christmas in Congress, but what really killed that 40% pay raise, the American people learned of it, and Elon Musk was threatening to primary any Republican who voted for a bill that included that. They blinked and went home without a pay raise.
Two words, Laurie, that haven't been heard in a lot of this: Biden and Harris. They had some role, but they're the most lame duck of lame duck, aren't they? Briefly, Laurie, if you would.
Yeah, they really are. Although that said, I'm not sure whether Biden could have influenced things or not here. I mean, really, there's not much going on there. I think a lot of relief amongst both parties that the government did not shut down, but I cannot believe people aren't jumping up and down about the fact that the U.S. isn't going to be able to borrow in the days and weeks to come.
Many problems ahead for 2025 and indeed for the Trump administration. It'll be fascinating to see how he deals with that. We will no doubt talk again in regard to that. Steve Gill, former advisor to Clinton and Bush administrations, and also Laurie Laird, the U.S. political commentator and economist. Thank you both very much indeed. We'll take more of your calls and we'll talk about the perfect gift for teachers. Stay with us here on Talk.
But when it comes to family life, you've got to ask, is it for the security of the nation and in the public interest? Well, surely having someone, as we've just seen, who controls 90% of the UK's heroin market is a threat to the country, a security. You would think. So a guy that simply attacked someone with whatever it was at B&Q, I don't think will even reach, you know, the idea that the court will say or will even consider it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Chris is in Lincolnshire and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Chris, you're very welcome to the programme. I know in the Sarah Sharif case and what the judge has decided, not putting the people responsible, or at least having some role in this, in the public domain. What do you think of that, Chris? What's your view?
I personally think the judge is right, and I question why people would want to know the identity of the social workers involved. You yourself, if you had that information, what would you do with that information?
Me personally, I would be talking about it on the air. I would be saying, why do these people still have a job? I would be talking about the horrendous things that happened to Sarah Sharif, and I would say that these are the people who apparently are responsible for the failures, and why do they still believe that they should be protecting children? Those would be the questions I would be asking. I would be very clear, of course, that the only thing I would be asking for were those people to lose their jobs, because the evidence is very clear, Chris. If people do things that they shouldn't be doing, well, then that's not something that I would encourage for a second.
And from your personal point of view, I totally respect and understand that. However, you're judging other people by your standards. Other people take that information and they act on it in a very bad way. Even in the past, I've seen soap actors on Coronation Street and different soaps, just people who are actors who play the bad guy. They are attacked in the street just by being an actor who's playing a bad guy. And you cannot expect Joe Public, all of them, to act in a reasonable and respectful manner towards these people once they're identified. And that is my concern, that although you are a decent guy, you cannot judge other people by your standards.
But I know exactly what you're saying, Chris, and I have a lot of sympathy with your argument, but I think my view is there should be transparency here, and the problem is that if we could trust the system, if we knew that those people would be held accountable, I mean, what I worry about is them hiding behind the anonymity, and this, you know, things like this happening again, or perhaps no sanction being taken against them.
Unfortunately, you may be correct. However, I don't think that is my decision to make. Personally, I don't think it's your decision to make. The press, I still don't believe, can be trusted. Since the death of the Princess of Wales, the press was held mostly responsible for that and have been told to clean up their act. They still haven't done. The press are still acting very irresponsibly, and I don't think the press can be trusted with this sort of information.
Chris, thank you for your thoughts. Merry Christmas to you. That was a perfect example of us agreeably disagreeing. John in Dorset, what do you think about this? You've given me a ring as well.
Yeah, I have grave problems about judges and their judgment. It's ironic, there's no pun intended, but we have Ikram Tan, who's a solicitor becoming a judge, who makes some pretty dodgy, but controversial judgments. He sent a policeman to jail for 20 weeks on the basis that his WhatsApp meme about the death of George Floyd was not in the public interest, and yet 3 Hamas supporters with their thing, they just he is a very controversial judge, and there have been all sorts of, I mean, the Hamas supporters, I think, were given perhaps suspended sentences, but you're absolutely right in that there are a lot of judges who you know, the public doesn't trust, and it is about confidence in the system, isn't it, John? Yeah, if I could just set that aside, Peter, for a moment. If you look at where judges come from, they come through chambers. By and large, the people who get into the judiciary and the system, barristers, they tend to be fairly select in their background. I mean, there are a few who come from, let's say, more common beginnings, but ultimately they go into a system that protects them from the public. A judge goes on the circuit. He lives in judges' lodgings. They have a very cosseted existence.
I agree with you, John, but they would argue that actually they need to be impartial, they need to be fair, they need to implement the law and not worry about, and the fact that they're not, you know, they're in a sense they're not accountable. They're accountable through the Court of Appeal and things like that. But they would say that they shouldn't be influenced by other people.
But that variation, you've hit the nail on the head. This judge is not exercising impartiality. He's making a decision.
I'm sure he would argue he is, but anyway, yeah.
And then we've got Harriet Harman, who is herself a lawyer, some years back over the Fred the Shred business, that they should be tried in the court of public opinion. You can't have it both ways. If politicians, and she was Deputy Prime Minister at the time, we're in a situation where judges are supposed to be impartial and they're not.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way, John. I think a lot of people will have that frustration. We're going to continue talking about this tomorrow, and if you want to get your thoughts in, please do give us a ring on 0344 499 1000. Just briefly before the end of the programme, I want to talk about a new survey that has been a poll of 11,000 teachers, primarily in primary and secondary schools across England, and they have been saying about Christmas gifts and what you should give primary school teachers. And we have my favourite primary school teacher, current primary school teacher. I'm the son of two former primary school teachers, but my favourite current primary school teacher is Lynn Radcliffe, who is a teacher at Seaview Primary School. Sorry, Lynn Murphy, apologies. I still know you as Lynn Radcliffe. Lynn Murphy is your married name. Perhaps I just haven't let go, Lynn, that you married Johnny. He is a wonderful man. Now, we know that 94% of primary teachers received a gift from a pupil. 1 in 5 had a class present where families put a collection together. Presumably you've received a few gifts from your students there at Seaview Primary School.
Oh, definitely. Many gifts over the years. Yeah, very grateful for anything that comes in. It's lovely to be thought of at all.
And what sort of things come in? Because you'll have extravagant gifts, you'll have gifts that are straightforward and done and with a huge degree of thought. What are the most meaningful ones, do you think, Lynn?
I mean, anything that comes in is appreciated. I always send a message to the parents and say to the children, you know, you really don't have to get me anything. It's so lovely that you thought of me at all. Things I've received range from coffee, vouchers for coffee shops, chocolates, biscuits. I've also received quite a few lovely Christmas decorations for my tree. So in the past, things that like one of my children's granny had crocheted, or because my husband and I got married at Christmas time, we got Your First Christmas is Mr. and Mrs. Baubles, lovely little thoughtful gifts. And I love those because whenever we put up the tree every year and we take them out of the box, and it always makes you think of that child and makes you smile, and it's a lovely little keepsake to have.
There are children, of course, from different backgrounds and different financial backgrounds and so on. How important is it for you as a teacher to actually say, you know, it doesn't matter how much you spend on it, it's just, you know, if you give me a gift, it's a wonderful thing. I mean, how do you kind of navigate that as a teacher? It must be a tricky one.
It is difficult, and obviously I totally understand that, especially now with the cost of living crisis, it's hard for many families, and we just like to reassure the children and their parents and their guardians that we don't expect anything. In the past, my school has actually, you know, sent out in our newsletter to say, look, please, you know, you don't need to worry about getting us anything. If you want to, you can.
I'm working now for Tommy Robinson. Maybe you know.
Oh, of course I do.
Yeah.
This is my husband. He's a Brit.
He's a British. Yes. Have maybe a message for the British people?
Man, stand up, because what we're seeing happening in Europe, especially in the UK, is nothing short of communism. I've seen videos of police show up at people's houses for reposting something on X or on Twitter, arrest people for not being okay with the amount of Palestine flags that are flying all over England. And so my message is to stand tall against the powers that be. I don't think this would ever go anywhere. But you guys need a Second Amendment.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I'm very grateful for Tommy. Thank you.
Donate to this.
Survey of 11,000 teachers talking about Christmas gifts. 94% of them received a gift. 1 in 5 had a class present, and 55% of secondary school teachers. It's more that primary school teachers get gifts. So an interesting one just as we go into the Christmas holidays. Speaking of people who are a gift in themselves, Chris Jacobs has been the producer of this programme, Tommy Bateson, the assistant producer, Dave Rhodes, the technical operator, Titus D'Souza and Davis Fang, the visual producer, and Ayabel Farres has been the video editor. So thank you to them. And up next, you're going to hear live commentary from the Premier League as Aston Villa hosts the struggling champions Manchester City. TalkSport's chief football commentator Sam Matterface is alongside former Premier League defender Scott Minto. Reshmin Chowdhury's on hosting duty, and then later this afternoon Adrian Durham is going to bring you coverage of TalkSport's Game Day Live, where they'll bring you all the goals as they go in this afternoon's football up and down the UK. Both the darts and the boxing are also live across the TalkSport network later today. And later on this evening, you can see a bit more of me in Clash of the Titans. I think they ran out of Titans, so that's me. Kevin and Julia, who are certainly Titans, and Russell Quirk as well, a Titan, will be there for Clash of the Titans, 7:30 on Talk, so do join us for that. You can see me tomorrow morning as well, between 10 and 1 here on Talk. In the meantime, I hope you have a lovely Saturday. Thank you so much for your company.